listening to the AFTERBUZZ TV network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Keith Johnson.
From the AFTERBUZZ Studios in Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and Bing.com, and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies, this is AFTERBUZZ TV's The Walking Dead After Show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. If you'd like to buzz in on tonight's show, you can buzz us at 424-256-1729. That's 424-256-1729. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AFTERBUZZ TV's The Walking Dead After Show.
This song is not as intense as when we do the Walking Dead normal intro song. But guys, we're doing the Walking Dead AFTERBUZZ After Show because Bing is for doing it. That is what we are doing. And guys, joining me tonight, a slightly different crew than you're used to. On the far left, we've got Stephen Lemieux.
Hello, I'm usually behind the computer, but now we have Martin for tonight anyway.
And next to him, the lovely, in that suit, Nando Velasquez.
Just dapper, just for you, man. Just for, yeah, feel it. Is it good? You like it?
That's Italian.
That's Italian?
That's Italian.
It is Italian.
It's very nice.
But underneath, it's Puerto Rican. Just so you know.
As long as it looks Italian. All right, and guys, I am Dave Klein, and unfortunately, sadly, Kristen, Carol, and Daryl Kristen could not make it tonight as they are doing the Oscars. So they're on
literally
the Oscars.
They are doing the Oscars.
They are doing it big with the Oscars.
Totally.
Ditching us on Walking Dead. Clearly, they're not real loyal fans.
Seriously.
Whatever.
The Oscars? Like, what is that?
Who won Best Picture? I don't know.
Is that like when you get asparagus and holidays with your steak?
I think we can say it at this point, though.
Oscars the Grouch. At this point, what?
Oscar the Grouch. That's it,
there you
right?
go.
Argo.
Yeah.
Argo won Best Picture.
Yeah.
For those of you who are late to the game. But let's jump on the prison from Walking Dead because that's where this show starts. And we've got a lot going on because Merle is back. He's back in prison. And Glenn, not too happy about it. And Merle's kind of interacting with everybody here. And we've got Merle kind of interacting. What did you guys think about Merle here?
I thought it was, I loved it. It was interesting because they had Merle behind bars that first scene. So I thought they locked him up for a second, but apparently he has some free reign.
I know. I was thinking that the same thing. I was like, did we miss a scene where they kind of made a point to unlock him and like let him into the group?
It was just interesting. I almost wonder if he meant to do that in some kind of way. It's just the purpose of that. But obviously there is still some division because Glenn is still harboring some extreme feelings to the point where he wants to barter with the governor by giving Merle away, as if that would really smooth things over.
I think that was Hershel's suggestion.
No, that was Glenn's suggestion.
Oh, yeah, you're right. It was Glenn's suggestion.
Because Hershel spoke up to him. He actually said Merle was an important asset because he had military experience and he was loyal to his brother.
Right. That was the conversation between Hershel and Glenn.
And
but we also get Merle, and in the beginning scene, Merle talking about how they're kind of living like rats in the prison.
Yeah.
Well, we get a lot about that. Like the prison is very negatively looked upon right now. With it's a tomb. We're living like rats. This is just rats trapped in a maze. And to bounce off what you said real quick, Nando, when Glenn says that about trading Merle to the governor and trying to get some kind of truce, it kind of revealed that, yeah, he was looking out for his best interests. He was trying to use Maggie as an excuse last episode, which we kind of touched upon last week, that it's more of his personal interest. He didn't care as much about Maggie for getting his revenge against the governor as he wanted himself.
And it's something that we should mention with that is we really saw no interactions with Maggie and Glenn this episode.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm sure it's just kind of a time thing, too, where they didn't have time to throw that in. But we didn't see any awkward glances or anything either. There was no negative or positive particularly.
Well, really, after the first 5 minutes, Glenn was pretty much invisible the whole rest of the episode to boot. Both of them were. So maybe they're handling their own thing.
Well, Maggie was kind of keeping watch at points.
Yeah.
But for a whole moment where people were keeping watch, a big moment in the beginning was Rick outside staying watch, and Carl comes and tells him, I don't think you should be the leader anymore. And he thinks, and he kind of explains it as he thinks that his father, that Rick, deserves arrest. which is a big moment. And I mean, everyone's kind of coming down on him. Right before that, we had Hershel telling Rick that he thought that Rick was slipping.
Hershel really spoke up there, yeah.
Yeah, and Hershel's kind of really been growing his voice. But I think at this point Carl's right. But Rick is becoming back to being a leader again. But I mean, what do you guys think?
Honestly, I think it was a good thing that Carl did. It was kind of somewhat of a test, it seemed, in Rick's mind that put Carl over the edge to adulthood, to realize the politics that are going on in the group, to actually know what's going on. Because when at the end he says Carl's ready, he says we're taking Carl, Carl's ready, and I think this scene really had that in it, that Rick understood that Carl does understand what's going on. He understands who the secondary players are, who the people who will eventually lead if anything should happen to Rick, and Carl's prepared for that.
I think we didn't really get to see much of a reaction from Rick after Carl told him that and told him that he wanted Daryl. He thought Daryl and Hershel should co-lead the group, but I think it's a very telling thing. His son, who that's been his main priority, to protect his son, and Lori, unfortunately, that didn't work out. But his son goes up to him and tells him, "I don't think you should be leader anymore." I think that's a very big thing, and the fact that Rick let that soak in, and by the end of the episode, he is trusting his son to go out and on a run with him, I think that's a huge for Rick.
I feel like it also factored into Rick kind of coming back into this leadership role, because he really did pick it back up this episode from what we've seen before. And I want to bring it back when we come to it later on in the episode, but there's also the first moment that we have of him holding Judith, and Judith for the first time is not crying as Rick is holding her. And this was the very first episode in time we've gotten to see that, where it was actually a calm Judith in Rick's hand, and Rick's actually taking care of her. But I want to go back to Merle and kind of his situation, because we come back, we've got Glenn, what you guys were talking about, where Glenn wants to use Merle as a bargaining chip, and then Hershel comes and, well, Merle comes and talks to Hershel, and they kind of had this sort of bond where they're both missing limbs, because Hershel is missing the leg and Merle is missing the arm, and they're kind of trading stories about how they lost their limbs.
Well, not only that, they both, Rick is really responsible for both of them losing their limbs. I mean, Merle hacked his own off, but it was because of Rick.
Right, that's true.
So they were bonding. I think, if anything, Merle got to learn a little bit about Rick through Hershel, because Hershel, again, being the moral compass, he connected with him. He spoke to him. Amazing that Merle reads the Bible. Just from that whole discovery, that was really interesting.
But as he explains, it's because Woodbury had a great library.
I think that was a little bit of a. I think that was a little bit of a. Oh, I'm really,
I'm educated.
I'm really a man, so I just read it because it's there.
But it is surprising for him to know, like, Matthew 29:23. He knew the end.
He knew
29:30. He knew the exact quote of the Bible.
Yeah. And
it was an interesting quote, to say the least. He says, "Let not your right hand cast it off, lest ye be fallen into hell."
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of like, where was Merle going at the moment when he still had his hand where Rick tied him to the roof? Like, he was about to rob the group. He was about to do a bunch of terrible things, like, and he was still in a terrible mindset. He's somewhat toned it down since then. I mean, aside from beating the living crap out of Glenn,
nice
but
catch.
coming back to the group, I mean, he hasn't been doing that much to rock the boat.
Well, I think that conversation with Hershel, I think was the first step. I mean, that Merle got to connect to anybody in the group without any antagonistic nature about him, because we see that later on. You see him connecting with Michonne a little bit later on, and it was just he wasn't teasing her. He had many opportunities probably to tease the hell out of her, later on in the episode, obviously when Andrea's there, but he's starting to. Here's the thing, if you're anybody else in that group, are you starting to trust Merle more? That's the question.
Right, and I mean, Hershel didn't have much reason to not trust him because he hadn't met him before, and a lot of these characters don't. Like, Maggie has never met Merle, so a lot of the new characters really don't have a reason to not trust him. It's specifically the characters from the very, very beginning who are still alive. But another thing I thought was kind of important in this scene is Hershel mentioning that he has found God again, and this is kind of the first time that we've had him really talking about it since his crisis and breakdown at the end of season 2, and where he's kind of explained that this is part of why he's collected again, is because he's found God again. And to kind of play devil's advocate in a way to the whole Merle and why he knows the Bible thing, it could also just be a case of kind of being the southern redneck archetype, that means he would know his Bible because it's kind of the Bible Belt where he's grown up.
Well,
so that could be part of it.
That definitely, I mean, that's definitely probably the reason. The library, as we said, the library is probably like he was joking. He just knows his Bible from that, most likely.
But I do want to talk about Daryl and Carol, who are reunited. And Carol's now this positive entity, and she has been for everybody. And we were talking about this last episode, how she's sort of the healing force within the group now. And she's having the conversation with Daryl where he has turned completely sour about the whole situation. And as you mentioned, Steven, he talks about how he thinks the prison's a tomb, and it's this overly negative attitude. And Carol's kind of mentions how far Daryl has come.
Well, she does it at the expense of his brother, though, too. I mean, Daryl's dealing with a lot more. I think he's taking it out on the tomb because he can't really take it out on anything else. Because right now he's just in a very stiff situation, especially with Rick, because Rick said you're liable for anything your brother does.
Yeah,
you got to keep your brother-in-law. If he doesn't fall in line, it's on you. So as Daryl is a very important part of their group, it's still anything with Merle. I mean, that's your brother. Hey, it's your brother, man. It's your brother. He kills Glenn. It's your brother. I mean, it's not going to happen, but I'm just exaggerating there. It's just.
But kind of like Hershel, I think, has such a good way of talking with Merle. Carol has a way of disarming Daryl a little bit. Not that he needed much, but he's obviously dedicated to his brother, and no one else is going to be able to talk to him. And she was able to say, "Look, your brother, he's not good for you. Don't let him bring you down."
I'm surprised.
Look how far you've come. You know, she said those things to Daryl, and he totally listened to her.
You know what though? I feel like Rick was kind of better with it to Daryl when he was just saying, "Hey, it's your brother. Whatever happens, happens," because that's almost placing that trust in Daryl.
Yeah.
And I think that's a stronger point than Carol kind of mothering him in a way and kind of smothering with that. I think Rick had just a better point of view, just trusting him and saying, "This is on you. I trust you."
Yeah.
Just leaving it at that.
Oh, he gave him full responsibility, and
Right.
he did it in a way, as opposed to 2 episodes ago. You know, he had a sensible conversation with him and gave him the responsibility, and Daryl gets it. That just shows Daryl's been taking more of a leadership role. He's been more and more. I would say next to Hershel, he's been more and more Rick's second in command.
It's also kind of shown that Rick is coming out of his daze to a point because he's making decisions based on rational thought as opposed to seeing Lori and waving his gun around. I mean, getting rid of the group, yeah. I mean, even with the group there, I don't know why I can't. Names escaping me.
Tyrese,
yeah,
Sasha,
Tyrese's
Alan,
group. Even
yeah.
with his group there, he was very hesitant before he was even seeing Lori, and now Merle, who is somebody who he really vehemently hates, he'll let him back in the group because he trusts Daryl so much and because he can actually think rationally that this is something like we're going to need people like this, especially with what's happening.
Well,
right
I think we're still jumping around a little bit because a lot happened in between those final moments when he gave Daryl that responsibility and beforehand, obviously, with Andrea coming. But
right, and one of those moments, let's talk about, is Merle coming over to Michonne, who's working out, and trying to clear the air with her a little bit.
Yeah.
And I love her comment when he's talking about like how, hey, he was just doing business. And she goes, "You mean like the Gestapo?"
Yeah.
He's like, "Yeah, kind of like that." Like he doesn't quite pick up on her. I guess what's behind what she's saying.
Yeah. Well, considering her attack on the governor, it's amazing that they could be in the same room and she's working out and she can hold herself. Because you know, obviously Merle is the least liked person in the camp. Even with everything that's happening now and the fact that he's trying to acclimate in there, he's still the least liked person in the camp. There's at least some like, do we trust Michonne? Do we not? But she still fares better than him. So I would think she has a little bit more status than him, but she just totally let him talk to her. So I was a little surprised by that. But that was great.
In the chat, we have Jason21676 commenting, Rule 173 in the How to Survive a Zombie Apocalypse manual: don't trust anyone with a knife duct taped to their arm. Which is sort of Merle a little bit there.
Well, I think Merle's also extremely fortunate that he got back into their group before anyone from their group was killed by the Woodbury people. Because nobody was actually murdered. I mean, Maggie wasn't raped. Glenn was really worked over, but he wasn't murdered. Now we actually have an actual murder from this side to this side, and Merle's now on this side. Because if he was on the governor's side, I don't think there's any way in hell he would have been back over there, even with Daryl's word.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that because they obviously Rick's after revenge on this whole thing because of what happened with Axel. So
and I'm sorry, but come on, people. We didn't get that much remorse for what happened to Axel.
You know
I mean,
what?
Carol didn't even seem beat up about it.
I don't even think it's so much an Axel thing. I think it's more of just the fact that it was a direct attack on all of them at the prison. I mean, I don't really think Rick cared that much about Axel, honestly, at the end of the day. But I really think it was just the attack on the prison where everybody was attacked that he cares about more as a collective.
I thought Carol would at least say more than just one line. And then I love how, well, that's getting into when Andrea gets there.
But yeah, so let's jump on the whole Andrea storyline and Woodbury, and start with Woodbury, where we start the episode with the governor with Milton, and they're kind of trying to collect how many forces do they have, and they figure out that including adolescents and including sick people and elderly people, they have 35. When Andrea comes storming in, pissed off because she has found out what just happened last week's episode, and she desperately wants to go to the prison.
She doesn't even know really what's happened. All she's known is they went to the prison and fired shots, right?
Yeah.
I mean, she doesn't even know that they killed one of their own until she's there.
She believed the governor when he said that he went to negotiate and they shot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she totally believed it, but she still wanted to see for herself. And it's just amazing to see that she's still very trusting of the governor, even though he held that information from her.
I mean, I think she was skeptical, though. I mean, I think she wants to believe him, but she's very skeptical about it. But I don't think she necessarily believed him. That's what I got from her. She was just like, okay.
She's being willfully ignorant, is the way I'd like to put it. I mean, with everything, with when Michonne left in the first place, and when Michonne was trying to tell her things, she didn't believe it. And then finally, Michonne has the whole fight with the governor. There's heads everywhere. His daughter, like all this stuff right in front of her, and she still refuses to believe. I mean, I love the line where Michonne's like, I guess the Messiah complex is contagious.
Yeah.
Because she's being so willfully ignorant because she wants to trust in that the governor created this whole Woodbury community. But I think the community would be better off without the governor.
Oh, totally.
Oh, yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely.
I mean, why kill off everybody who wants to come into Woodbury in the first place? That's ridiculous. Just take them in and you have more people. There's no reason to kill them. I mean, I know you want resources and ammo and all that, but you can still take people in. They would love to be part of that community.
Yeah, well, I mean, you look at the whole platoon of soldiers that they took out. Like, that's one of the first things we see of the governor. And that they would be good people to have in the community. They would have been awesome people to have in the community, especially for times like this against Rick's group. But now they're giving guns to everyone ages 13 and up. Like, we have no idea what kind of politics are playing inside the community. 2 episodes ago, everyone wanted to leave. So does the governor truly believe that he has that much control over everyone in this community right now, that he can give them all guns and train them to fight, and they're going to do what he tells them to?
I mean, apparently they are, though, because, I mean, we have Andrea walking out through the town and seeing people building barricades. There's one of the soldiers, I think it was Martinez maybe, talking about how they're building an army. It's not self-defense. And then later we have him looking at all the recruits. So, I mean, clearly they are believing him regardless of everything that happened. They're just blindly accepting everything he's telling them.
Uniting against a common enemy.
Right. And again, it's just like, it's kind of what Andrea was doing, except they know less. They all just want to believe in him, and they want to believe it, regardless of what they see in front of them.
Well, I think Andrea's calmed down the group, and they've decided they should stay. So I think there's a little bit of that we have to assume. Andrea has been a calming force. He used her perfectly. He used her as a figurehead to calm the troops, and then he could he's starting to take control again. But I think it's interesting how in that scene with Martinez, when Martinez said we're building an army, she was called over by I don't know the name of the girl that was there that was talking about her son, but the citizens, the people who aren't in the army section, trust her completely, and they wanted her opinion. And when she came over, Martinez, it's just obvious that anybody who's like a lieutenant in the governor's army does not care for her at all. She's just an empty figurehead to them.
Oh, they would have fired on sight if they didn't have the civilians at the gate at the end, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Although
probably.
it is funny, though, how she was the one who helped save it from collapsing, and then they still don't trust her
Exactly.
or believe her.
It's so weird.
Which is, yeah, it's pretty ridiculous, honestly. I think it's ridiculous that they would have so little faith in her and trust in her after that.
I honestly think that there's more at play here that like we don't have a story of. Like if you look into Woodbury and we look into how Rick's group behaves and how there were these characters in it that had so many differing opinions. We had the Shane of the group. We had this. I mean, we have Woodbury where we only really get to hear about the governor, Milton, Andrea, and not even too much Martinez. I wouldn't be surprised if there's another faction within Woodbury that's against the governor at this point that we haven't even heard about. That maybe when the S hits the fan, Martinez is going to have his own backup contingency.
Yeah.
Because I don't think Martinez is really one to take anything from anyone.
I mean, he seems to from the governor, though. He seems to have total faith in the governor.
Yeah, he does seem to have that. I think the only person that might be questionable, although you might disagree with this, is Milton, just because he seems a little too wimpy right now, and he's still going with the governor. But
And I think that's good that you bring that up, and we should talk about this because Milton had this scene with Andrea where they're kind of talking about the barricades, and Andrea asked Milton to cover for her, and he just does not want to hear it from her. He doesn't want to be any part of it. And I think that was coming from a place of truth with him. And he ends up going and telling the governor anyways, but I think he really didn't want to. Did you guys think that he would choose to be the double agent for the governor before we got the reveal that he was?
I think he is. I want to say he's a coward. He obviously didn't want to go and do much more with the zombie. He was really hated the fact that he had to help Andrea with the zombie out there in the woods to begin with. He just doesn't want to be in the middle of the crossfire between the two of them. He's going to have to eventually take a side. And I think that's when the S is going to hit the fan. He's going to have to be forced to take a side and trust whether he wants to be a lieutenant of the governor's, whether he really would take a bullet for the governor like he said the week before, or if he is more concerned about doing his work, because I think his work was more noble from where he wanted to come from, and the governor took advantage of that.
I think Milton's going to play a very, very important role in the future with Rick's group next season.
I agree, and I think it'll be kind of related to what happened in the comics that I don't want to ruin, but I think there's a parallel character we see in the comics. Yeah. But there's another thing. Can
I say one more thing on Milton?
Yeah.
And I agree with the whole boundary thing, because you don't know where he is right now, because he would have much rather Andrea just leave without trying to get him involved at all.
Exactly, yeah.
Because he had to tell the governor, because this is where he is right now. And if he didn't tell the governor, then he would have been put on the chopping block. But telling the governor, and then it helped him immensely that Andrea went to the governor and told him herself.
Right.
Because in case he didn't tell the governor, he would have been in the same position.
But, well, I mean, the governor wouldn't have necessarily known that Milton had helped out. Andrea didn't reveal that. But, I mean, again, do you guys think that, or did you guys think that Milton would immediately go straight to the governor like he did? Because it was the following scene while you were watching.
I thought he would. Yeah. At this point right now, yes, absolutely. He was called. He was given the responsibility to keep tabs on Andrea, and I expected that. I didn't expect him to really go out and help her in that fashion, to actually go out in the woods and get a zombie Michonne style for Andrea to walk around with. So
that curb stomping scene was.
Oh yeah.
I honestly think that was, well, before I get into that scene, I do want to say that I thought it was great with Milton for the last thing. It's just that he was afraid that it was a test with the governor. So clearly he's just totally afraid of the governor, as you guys were saying.
Absolutely afraid of him.
But, man, that curb stomping scene, I think that was honestly, to me, the most brutal thing I've seen in the entire show.
Just the sound of the teeth on the rock.
And just when you actually see the teeth there and you know she's going to do, and you have that anticipation of it, you're just like, oh, no, are they going to show this?
There are very few things that will, like, really get under your skin when you see them being acted out. And teeth breaking is one of them, and fingernail pulling is the other.
You kind of feel, you feel that stuff when you see those scenes. You can't help but want to hold your mouth or something.
It is really,
Let me add eye gouging to the list.
Eye gouging,
I mean, we saw the governor.
And anything in the central area just below the belt, possibly too.
Yeah. You know what? When I saw the movie The Phantom as a kid, and they had a microscope lens that they twisted, and instead a needle came out and a spike that went into the person's eye. It's when you're trying to adjust the focus.
Yeah.
They made it so there's a spike that came out in their eye. Most disgusting thing to me ever. It haunted me forever.
What about that Final Destination 5 one with the Lasix?
What about Dead Space 2?
Yeah.
All right?
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay, Dead Space 2 is a good one. That one wins. All right, but let's get back on.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, honestly, this to me was one of the grossest things in all of Walking Dead, which is amazing for all the things they've done, especially with what Michonne was doing to the governor. I was still like, wow, this is gross.
Can I just say one thing on that whole thing, too? I just don't get how you take a zombie's arms off and you take his teeth off and you put a little cattle, whatever you call those cattle rope type of metallic lasso things, and you can just walk around and not expect zombies to get you. I mean, I get that Michonne had 2 zombies with her chained to her, but she still used her blade to get any zombies in between. So I just found
Andrea
that really
did too.
weird. Andrea did too, but I almost would have thought like she's been around. She knows about the whole like you want to smell like the zombie. If you don't want to get taken by zombies, you can smell like them. I mean, it's not probably the most preferable way, but
It's preferable.
it's preferable.
There's another case of her hiding behind a tree as a zombie walks by.
I guess that's true.
If it was gonna smell her, it was gonna smell her, and it didn't.
Well, I guess they made reference to it when they got rescued by Tyrese's group. So, but I was just wondering that myself, and then I remembered, you know, she's been with Michonne for a bunch of months, and I guess that she was used to having zombie slaves, I don't know what you want to call them, zombie eunuchs. That's what I'm gonna call them, zombie eunuchs.
It was a very awkward meeting when we see the new people, when we see Tyrese's group meet up with them, because of course, Milton knows all the governor's dealings. I'm pretty sure. Like he has to. He has to know all about.
I don't think Milton is clued in on everything that the governor does. Honestly, I really don't. I don't think the governor trusts Milton with that information. I think he just gives Milton what he wants to hear, just like he told Andrea what she wanted to hear. I think that's what the governor's good about, is knowing what information to give what people, so they'll stay on his side.
But he's so terrified of him.
But I think he's figured it out and he knows what goes on behind the scenes. But I don't think the governor gives him the heads up of like, this is what we're doing. I think he was being honest when he said that he didn't know that the governor went and did what they did at the prison. I think he really didn't. I think he just knew that they were going to do something. But on the whole Milton thing again, I just want to point out that he was wearing a jacket that had the whole duct tape armor on it for the sleeves. That was how his sleeves were composed, which was kind of cool to see that they have their armor going in.
Some more duct tape.
But let's talk about Tyrese's group running into them.
I just want to acknowledge that I was wrong last week, completely wrong when I was hinting that maybe we won't see Tyrese in the near future, and I
thought Tyrese's group was going to end up helping the prisoners. Apparently not.
Yeah.
Dude, wrong. Actually, I think they still will. Honestly, I think Tyrese's group will help the prison in the end.
Well,
because they know that they're good people.
Except for Rick. To them.
To them. But
well, Alan and Ben more so. They seem to not like Rick. Tyrese seems to still have a cool head, more or less.
Yeah. But I mean, they're not going to act against Rick with Carl there, though. That's the thing.
But I mean, the thing that we get though is Tyrese saying to them after Milton shows them and they end up accepting him, is that they are willing to do anything so long as they can stay and have a place to stay, and that's what they're driven by. So. And it's Tyrese telling them that.
It's Tyrese.
It is Tyrese saying that, hey, we will give you the layout to the prison. We'll give you whatever we need. We don't like them either, even though we think that some of them are cool. And we just want a place to stay. Well, and they're pretty much saying they'll do anything for shelter.
I feel like I feel like Alan and Rick were definitely saying, hey, if you're after Rick, we'll go in with you. I think Tyrese was more like, he even said they're decent people. I think he's willing to. Well, right now I guess they really don't know how evil the governor can be. So Tyrese is willing to help out, but I don't think he has the same intentions that Alan and Ben seem to have. They seem to be a little bit more vindictive than Tyrese. And obviously Tyrese will probably have a more kind of like Milton. Tyrese will have a more pivotal role probably to play in the future. I'm guessing between what side to choose, because he does have a more of a cool head, and I think he wants to be surrounded morally by people he can trust, by people who share his morals, him and Sasha.
Well, right now everyone in Woodbury considers everyone at the prison like an enemy, a well-armed enemy.
Yeah.
And so far the only person who really knows who is at the prison is the governor, Martinez, and Andrea.
Yeah.
And now we have a group of 4 people
With inside information.
Who know who's at the prison, who know what the people there are like, who know that they're not just bloodthirsty animals. So if we mix them with all of the 13 and up people, civilians who are getting training, they start giving them training too, word will spread. I mean, things will happen that, look, these aren't like bloodthirsty people. Like, they're not here to get us. It's like a kid. It's like a kid with a baby and a mom, and like, it's just another community. So I mean, I think Tyrese's group will have an unintentional role, even just to help out, because I think it's going to end up civilians versus military of Woodbury in the end.
So from the chat, we have Pat predicting that the two guys with Tyreese, so
Alan
and Ben, with and his daughter are definitely eating a bullet by the end of the season. That would be Pat's prediction there.
By the way, that's not his daughter. I believe that's his sister.
I think Sasha. No, Sasha is Tyrese's daughter.
I checked it out. I actually checked. I looked it up on the comic book, and the character. I don't want to go too into the comic, but the character there has a different name. I was really curious about it, and I believe I saw somewhere. Sorry to call you out on this. I believe I saw somewhere his sister. Yeah, I'm a jerk, but we can confirm. You know what? We'll confirm that for next week. But I thought it was interesting because obviously, if anyone who's read the comic book, stuff happens to Tyrese's daughter that it's pretty obvious it's not going to happen here. Yeah. So unless that character maybe she'll come up in conversation or something like that later down the line.
But let's go back to the whole factor with Andrea and come back to the prison, because this is kind of the meat of the episode. And actually, before I do that, I do want to mention, guys, that we do provide the show for you guys, and we would love your support in any way possible, whether that be going on iTunes, go on YouTube, please comment, please rate us, positive or negative. It doesn't matter. We just want to know your feedback so we know how we can make this show better for you guys. And also come and hang out with us on the live chat. You've heard me commenting some of the guys from the live chat. We will shout you out, and we do love hearing your comments, and we'll read them out. So come check us out. That's 9 p.m. Pacific time, 12 a.m. in the East Coast time. So let's jump on Carl and Maggie, who are staying and watch as they see, who's that face? Oh, it looks like it's Andrea. Andrea back at the prison, chauffeuring the walker in front of her, and we get to see some of the tactical units of Rick and Merle as they're using some military style tactics running out.
Wow, yeah.
Looks like some nice army work.
I think that was just a very telling scene in general, just seeing how Rick reacted. You were talking earlier about Rick's reaction, waving the gun in the air with Tyrese's group and how he's changed, to the end of this week's episode, but he was still in a similar state, not as crazy, but still a little paranoid and still very nervous after the attack on the prison. And he treated her like a prisoner of war in the beginning.
He's kind of being a dick to her.
Yeah, a complete
especially
dick to
since
her.
they knew her so well beforehand.
He doesn't trust her. He's in a very not trusting place with anybody outside that prison right now.
Their word about Andrea is Michonne's word.
Yeah.
And Michonne knows what the deal is, and she knows that when she left, she was the governor's little birdie.
Yeah. The biggest thing was him putting her up to the gate, and a zombie almost got her. I mean, if that doesn't show you how differently he felt about her at that time, that he was willing to put her at risk just for the safety of the group, that scene alone I thought was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we get Andrea kind of reintroduced to the entire group after this, where Carol is happy to see her. Yeah. And Andrea asks about all of our long lost friends. First one she asks about is Shane. It's the first one she asks about. So shows what she's still thinking about the most, which I kind of forgot about Shane throughout all of this, throughout this whole season. I mean, there was the one moment where Rick sees Shane during the war scene, but it feels like it was so long ago that Shane even existed in this world. But she asked about Shane, asked about Lori, kind of not great subjects to bring up.
Yeah.
And
not to Rick, at least.
But she really wants to work it out with them, and she really wants to bring some sort of peace between them and Woodbury. And I think her head's in the right place, even though Merle kind of mentions and Hershel asks is if the governor wants peace, and she admits that she's here on her own accord, not with the governor. And that's a big point. As much as she wants peace, it doesn't matter so long as the governor doesn't care.
Well, I think what we're glossing over here, and I think what's the most interesting thing about this scene is just her perspective on these people. I mean, she hasn't seen them since the end of season 2.
Yeah.
So and just to hear, like you said, the first words out of her mouth was Shane, and for me the same thing. I was like, wow, has it been that long? I guess it has been that long. She didn't even know Shane was dead because that happened the same episode where the herd came to Hershel's farm. So she was split up right before everyone else knew, but she was split up right before then. So but I think what's interesting is her perspective, how she's viewing these people. She expected to come back to the prison like that they were all her friends, and Rick was the first the first like shot of water to her face. And then she's there and she's just looking at everyone else and they're just battle hardened. She's been living in Woodbury where she's been I'm coddled, I want to say, almost. I mean, she's been sleeping with the governor. She's been enjoying picnics and barbecue. I mean, they had some problems, and she's just been throwing it off, saying, I just want to go to the prison and see them. And now she sees what they've been through since she's been gone.
And jumping off of that point, from her perspective, everything she's getting from the governor is that they're the jerks. They're the ones who attack first. They are not good people. They probably changed since you last saw them. And that is her first perspective to them, is how much they've changed. And they're holding all these guns. Yeah. They're ready for war. So her first perspective, given all the things that the governor is feeding into her, has got to be, to some extent, like, is the governor telling the truth to an extent? Yeah. Was it my friends who did this first? Because she really wants to believe him, and this isn't the best thing to see first.
Even Beth was holding a gun. Even Beth was holding a gun, which I thought was interesting, because I don't think I've seen her hold a gun at all before. I don't even think she held a gun in the attack on the prison. I think she was probably with the baby. But yeah, that must have been really telling for her to see, like, everybody. She was busy fighting the governor in Woodbury from having every single person have a gun, and then she goes to the prison, and every single person has a gun. Yeah, everybody.
Well, it's interesting because they all treated her like she was bitten when they were in the middle of the prison. Like, everyone made like a radius around her.
They wouldn't even let her see the baby.
But at first, the really interesting conversation we get though is between Andrea and Michonne, because there's a lot of very key points that Michonne makes. She says, "You traded your friends for a warm bed."
For a warm bed, yeah.
And then she asks her, "Who are you trying to save, them or us?" "I'm trying to save you guys as well," which kind of means, I'm saving them, but I'm trying to save you too.
Right.
Yeah. And that's kind of like the dick thing to say when people are like, I don't know, it's kind of passive aggressive, where you're like, I'm trying to save you. Like, you can't save yourself. I'm trying to save you. I'm doing you a service. It's like, why don't you do us a service and like kill the governor? Which surprisingly is what, out of all the people to suggest it, comes from Carol.
Yeah, that was surprising to me as well. I did not expect that coming from Carol. And just real quick from the chat, I want to mention Pat brought up the character on the show, or who we think of as Sasha. At least the character in the comics, the daughter, her name is Julie. That's the name of the comic character. So there's the actual name. And it's a different name. I still kind of think of her as being a daughter, but maybe you're right, and it's the sister.
I think I heard it was sister, but you know what? I'll check my notes from the previous week. But
let's jump on what you were talking about, Steven, because that really is the key moment and key point that we're getting here. First, Andrea also hears for the first time from Michonne the real account of what happened. And Andrea didn't know that Merle was sent to kill Michonne right after Michonne left, which is also a huge key point. And she kind of stood there a little speechless right afterwards. But then she did have that dig that you mentioned. So we're kind of getting things from both sides. And I think it's great. Like, I was not expecting Carol to be the one who would suggest.
Such a good way to put it, though. You let her hold the baby. You're talking about the baby. You're showing her, like, she's holding in her arms what they're all protecting. Like, they're protecting the safety of we are keeping this child safe. Kind of put that thought in her mind, and then just like ease her into it. You better just give him the night of his life.
The baby has a name, and it's a little ass kicker.
Yes. Yeah. I bet Daryl thought of that.
Or Judith, depending on who. What I think was really amazing about her suggestion is I'm gonna reference How I Met Your Mother for a second, but when she started saying you go back to the governor, sleep with him, give him the best night of his life, I was like, oh honey, as if like haven't you learned from your past relationships, from Ed or whatever? You don't just say like, oh, I'm gonna love you. It's like, no, and then all of a sudden she's like, and then get a knife and kill him. I was like, whoa, that was a very big change than what I expected her to say. But yeah, it actually goes to show even Carol, who's very motherly, all of a sudden is coming up with some sneaky little way to do, to get the governor. That was amazing to me.
Going Black Widow. And I thought it was interesting, especially. Sorry, this is going back to when Andrea was first in the whole circle where they're talking about who all died and stuff, and they talk about how even Daryl says, "Yeah, and Axel, he was one of us. We liked him," and then it takes Carol to bring up, "Oh yeah, and T-Dog died." Oh yeah, T-Dog died too.
Yeah, he's such a second whatever.
Even a throw. Actually, they said Axel. They actually gave Axel a better eulogy there than T-Dog, which I thought was interesting. He was someone. He ended up being part of the. I think Hershel said it. Yeah, and a prisoner who I really cared about. Died.
They also didn't mention Oscar then.
They did? No, I thought they were talking about Axel because of the assault.
They were talking about Oscar, but I'm just saying Oscar and T-Dog didn't get much of a shout.
Oh yeah, what's up with that?
Oscar didn't get anything.
Oscar got
That's
nothing.
why I'm saying Oscar got nothing.
Wow.
So guest 286 on the chat clarified for us, brought up the Wikipedia that Sasha Soniqua Martin Green is alive and is the sister of
there we go.
Tyreese. So there you go.
Thank you guys for checking up on that. Thanks a lot.
Thank you guys so much. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
The power of social media.
Yes, absolutely.
My God.
So at the end of this whole thing, Rick and crew, presumably
the Rick and crew.
It seems, Rick and crew. They presumably, I'm assuming that they know this plan, and they give Andrea a car, and they tell her to be safe. And I'm kind of assuming here that they got the info that she was supposed to murder the governor. Do you guys think that they all had that knowledge?
I don't think so. I think what we see from the scenes of next week with Rick, Carl, and Michonne going there, and especially in the scenes you don't see Michonne there, you see only Rick and Carl. I'll talk more about this in predictions, what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
But I think Rick and Andrea have something worked out aside from the killing governor thing.
Oh, just letting him in.
I think it's one of those plans that we don't hear about, but Rick and Andrea, because Rick was so much more friendly as she was leaving. He handed her the gun, he was like, all right, drive safe, be safe out there. I think they have something in the works for next week that Andrea can kind of lay the groundwork for talking about who these people are at the prison to the civilians. So when Rick and Carl show up, it's one of those nobody's going to shoot them on sight. They're going to be like, well, let's talk. Let's hear what they have to say.
I don't know if it's that pre-planned. The way I took that scene as is, and I think it's important. I think Rick shifted. He when she came in, he practically attacked her, and then after she's there and she finally gained the trust of the group to see the baby, to talk to a few people, to actually walk one-on-one with Michonne and some other people, I think Rick softened a little bit, and I think that's why it shows more toward the end of the episode when he's holding the baby, when he's doing that. I think it's almost like Andrea was just like Andrea saw the group and saw a change in them, a different perspective. I think Rick saw the person that he knew several months ago when times were different, before all this stuff was going on, and going, man, have I really gotten that hard? So I think he's trusting her to be on his side by giving her the car and the gun, but I don't think they have anything planned yet. But I think he's trusting that she'll have his back
when the time comes.
When the time comes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, and I agree with you that it was a good shift in perspective on Rick, where, I mean, he didn't send Merle after her.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's also a big difference. But let's, before we talk about Andrea coming back and that whole scene, let's just talk about the end of the prison scene, where we have Andrea has now left, and they have this kind of a campfire thing inside the prison where they're using a lamp, like a lamp fire. And Beth is singing to everyone. And this is the scene where Rick has the finally not crying Judith.
Yes.
And Nando actually looked up the song that was used. It is "Hold On" by Tom Waits.
Yeah, well, we played it at the top of the thing, and it was a beautiful song.
And Beth is the musician of all of them. She's the muse for the group. But we see during this calming scene, we kind of get some resolutions in a way where, or just some real conversation between them, like a calm, collected conversation. I feel like, where we get Hershel talking about Andrea having a persuasive argument, and we've got that Rick is the moment where Rick is glad that Daryl's back and he trusts Daryl to look after Merle, and we also get Rick trusting Michonne and trusting Carl. So kind of some positive points in a sense where Rick is coming back to the group. Yeah.
Well, it's such a shift though too, because when we first see them in that, there is the camera shot of the cell block, seeing all of them in the cell block having a discussion, it's them deciding whether they're going to leave or stay. Nobody's agreeing on anything. Everybody's yelling at each other. Hershel yells, "Rick, come back here." And then this is actually like the next time we see that shot of the cell block where everyone's there, is the morning they're all there, and then the night they're all there. And within that whole course of the day, with Andrea coming back, this is the complete shift where they're all kind of unified in this, okay, well, let's calm ourselves down. What do we got to do? And this is how we're going to do it.
But where do Maggie and Glenn stand in all this? That's what I want to know.
I feel like we might have to wait a little bit longer
Still
for that.
think she's pregnant.
It's possible. It's possible.
But going back to Andrea, she has come back from the prison, and as we mentioned before, the wall barricade is completely manned. They're ready to shoot her down on sight, and they end up letting her in to have a little chat with the governor. And the first thing he asks is if Michonne is there, and then Merle, and then Rick, but specifically Michonne, he wants to know for some reason.
Well, she was surprised when he said Rick, because I think she didn't think he knew. He found out that Rick was the leader, I guess, from Tyrese's group when they mentioned his name. But I saw that too. But yeah, I liked his priorities was Michonne and Merle. He obviously thinks they're the enemy. And he feels that I'm sure, violated that Rick's group got in and did all the damage that they did a few episodes ago. So yeah, he's obviously, you could tell he's bent on still getting these guys.
What did you think of the similarity between who he asked about first and what Merle said his plan would be when he takes over the prison?
Ooh, that's a good point.
He's gonna first kill Michonne, then he's gonna kill him.
No, he said him first. I think him, then Michonne.
And then he's going to kill everyone else in front of Rick,
right.
and then Rick's the last one.
Yeah.
I think that's right.
That's a really interesting.
I think
like
Merle
that.
has his plan down, and Merle knows him best. I think Merle absolutely knows what he's going to do. And I also like the moment where Merle asks why she came back and just decides to answer it himself because she belongs there. And I think that's, again, him trying to manipulate her into being part of them.
I'm surprised. I guess I'm surprised how trusting he seemed to be.
I was too.
Yeah.
I was really surprised how trusting he was.
I'm just going to bring this up randomly because they seem to throw it at us like 3 times. Do you think there's going to be a role to play for Noah in Woodbury?
That's a good question. I mean, they showed him in reference really to his asthmatic condition.
Yeah, well, they brought him up more than like, I mean, they have the woman with arthritis, but then they have Noah that they bring up and make it a point to bring up like more than 2 times.
I don't think he has enough lines right now for me to make a decision either way. It's possible, but I feel like he was brought up mainly because to show that the governor wants to give everybody, no matter what ailment, no matter who they are, a gun. And I think he was just one of the extremes, like even people who've never held a gun before, asthmatic, a kid.
Hey, he had a BB gun.
He had a BB gun. So yeah, but I think it was more for that right now. But I don't sense anything either way. If anything, is that his mother? She looks too young to be his mother, but she seems to be his guardian.
Well, you never know.
She seems to be more vital.
With zombies, everyone assumes familial roles with.
Yeah,
people who pass away.
Well, he's definitely there, so he's open. He's been in multiple episodes, so
I do think we're going to see him again.
Yeah.
I just don't think he'll necessarily be central. I think we'll just see him again and be like, oh, there he is. Oh, he's one of the ones doing something to an extent.
Getting killed.
Right, getting killed.
Getting
just,
killed.
Just some sort of empathy for him more than some non-person that you would have never
He'll
met.
have a better death than Vincent, probably.
Yeah.
Probably, as sad as that is. Sorry, Vincent. We're sorry.
You didn't have asthma, Vincent. I'm sorry, man.
But before I get to the final scene of the show, I do want to mention, guys, that we do have a store now on AfterBuzz. Go to AfterBuzzTV.com. Check out our store. We had probably mugs you can buy. Plenty of awesome AfterBuzz TV merch. So check it out for all your AfterBuzz TV needs.
That sounds so industry. Merch.
Get some swag, yo.
Get some
merch.
I'm a big Penny Arcade reader, and that's what they refer to it as. So
merch is good.
There you go. All right, so let's talk about the final scene, the ending scene of the episode, which is Andrea in bed with the governor, and she goes to take out the knife and decides she just cannot do it.
Coward.
That was a pretty long scene. I felt she seemed to have the knife for a long time. I really thought the governor was going to wake up, although she was by his bad eye side. So it's not like he could see her right away. Probably
the whole time I thought that he was going to have been awake.
Yeah.
And just it like zoom in on his face, and he's going to close his eye and just smile.
Again, because I can't believe that he trusted her that much.
Yeah.
Going from that other scene, I can't believe he was so trusting that he actually fell asleep. And
Sex does a lot of things to our minds.
Apparently. I totally agree. I really could not believe that he was so trusting, but I really thought he was asleep and that she was going to I thought she was going to decide not to kill him. And I think the intention there is, I think she does think that he needs to go, but she just cannot bring herself to be a cold-blooded killer.
Yeah.
Because we've seen her kill zombies or walkers and not care, but that's entirely different than killing an unmanned person and a defenseless person.
Well, I think there's no accident that song by Tom Waits, "Hold On," was played, because it seemed like I don't have the lyrics in front of me, but it seemed from what I was reading before, "Hold on, hold on." It almost was like she's trying to hold on to some kind of humanity, because to do that move, I mean, she's shot a gun before, she's killed zombies before, but this is totally stabbing
This is straight
someone
up
in the
murder.
back. Straight up murder, stabbing somebody while they're asleep that she loves, that she respects somewhat, even though he hasn't been 100% honest with her and she knows it. She still is trying to mend the fences and get both sides together. So I really think there's no accident that song was playing during that scene.
I love the line where Daryl was like, "Tell him I'm going to get his other eye."
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I really would like to see, like, I've been waiting 3 seasons to see Andrea become her comic book character, and I just, after her not doing it, I can't see it happening.
I mean, she's become more of a competent character.
Yeah.
She's not as much of a whiny bitch, frankly, as she has been in the past. So she has grown a lot. But let's get to some of the comments from you guys. On YouTube, we had Bahaha Val, Meow Jewel 31, Money J Pro 23, My Daddy Ate My Eyes, great username.
Wow.
Darth X, I believe that's Darth X Poot. Darth X Poo, Jack Hammer 23, Larry Breitfelder, David Walker, Joe Beard, Dante Relaford, Jake Embry, Jalad Wino, the Rumpletees, and the Blue Jellyfish. Thank you guys for commenting. My Daddy Ate My Eyes said that he likes how brutal the show is, even though it can't go as graphic as the comics. And that scene with the teeth today, yes, the show does go pretty brutal.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think the comic, there's a couple of scenes in particular, I think from the past that...
The eye, the spoon. We
Well,
can say that. The spoon.
Yeah, that one. There we go.
There we go. Joe Beard, I'm wondering about, there's a scene during that same thing that happens. I'm wondering if now we're going to get to see in the future.
I'm sorry.
During the whole, like, why she does that.
Yeah.
There's a brutal scene around that time in the
Well,
comics that I think we might see.
We shouldn't.
I mean, I'm not going to say, I'm just saying that for people who read the comics. But
Okay.
that's as far as I'm going.
But I will say this. There's one scene in particular that I know is not going to happen on the show, because it involved some of the prisoners. That was one of the more graphic scenes. So
That was
I feel that the TV show doesn't go as graphic in some ways. I mean, just the whole scene with the governor and Maggie, where it was like just the insinuation that he was going to rape her, but he never did. I thought that was just another example of the comic gets much darker in some areas, and that was another scene that I was like,
I mean,
wow.
that's definitely like enough of a hair-raising scene in itself, just that implication. But Joe Beard on the chat wants to know if we think Daryl and Merle will drift apart.
Oh, that's a good question. That's a really good question, actually.
I think that they will end up drifting apart. Well, we're seeing Merle kind of come towards Daryl's side. You know what? Now that I think about it, I take it back. I think Merle's going to start actually coming to the light side and siding with Daryl, and then he's going to get killed.
I think there's going to be a redemption for him with the group, where he's still not 100% trustworthy, but I think there's going to be something where he totally makes either a sacrifice or just makes a stand and ends up getting killed. That's what I agree with that.
Let's say Merle kills the governor.
Ooh,
big
that's a
prediction.
good one too. That's a good one too.
All right, so Dante Relaford on the chat just said that they love the show. He loves the show, and again, thank you guys so much, all of you guys who commented that. We really appreciate it. And if you guys have negative things or comments for how we can improve, we encourage that too. Finally, the Blue Jellyfish loves that they use zombies as weapons.
Yeah.
And they're wondering how the show can top that in the future. And I feel like we're gonna see even more crazy methods, and maybe something where they pit one person against an entire group of zombies.
Well, I think they showed a scene that looked like it in the upcoming week for next week, where it seemed like they had a zombie on a barricade. So it would be probably smart to tie up zombies to the barricade to make it hard for people to go in.
No, what that was they had wire traps so it'd make noise when the zombies hit them.
Oh, that's what it was? It just felt to me like that, because I think there's because you know what, the video game had in chapter 4 or something like that. He had something like that.
Maybe you have like a moat of zombies, a moat of walkers that you have to get through to get to a castle.
Oh wow! And you have to step on their heads. That's the only way you could probably do. But of course
But you have to
can't.
walk through the moat.
You have to walk through the moat.
This is pretty morbid, but I could think of a way to maybe top the truck thing. If they have a group of people and somebody's trying to create an uproar, if they have some sort of like injected medication that can kill them, they would inject them and then they would bite their arm so it looked like they were bitten and turned into a zombie overnight.
Whoa. Oh, wow. That's crazy.
That's
yeah.
creepy, too.
I think the next step, obviously, you just have to get airplanes and helicopters and start throwing zombies off.
like a bomb.
like a
Sick of
bombing
these
run.
A walker
motherfucking
bomb.
zombies on this plane.
Okay, final comment before we get to the predictions is Lions fan on the chat agreeing with us that basically thinks Merle could do the dirty work for the prisoners and then will end up getting killed. So it's kind of like being a sacrifice in a way, sacrificial lamb. So let's get to predictions.
Ooh, boy.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV
Predictions.
Steven, you want to start us off there?
Okay, so what I think's gonna happen is Michonne's gonna be there. Michonne, of course, Michonne, Carl, and Rick are going to Woodbury right now. So I think Michonne is gonna split off for them right now because Rick, of course, says he's going for a run. Michonne's gonna split off to try to find a back way into Woodbury and to case the place out right now with their new fortifications because Andrea told them that they're plating it off and sealing it off. And I think Rick and Carl go in the front door because they know they have civilians watching the gates. They know that it's not going to be people who are just going to shoot on sight. So they're going to go in the front door, and the governor's not going to be able to keep them under wraps because everybody's going to know they're there. Like, unlike Glenn and Maggie, nobody knew they were there. Everybody's going to know Rick and Carl are there. And he's bringing Carl to show that they're not a bunch of bloodthirsty savages. They have children. Like, showing that you have children in your group will kind of throw water on the fire of war, per se.
Man, I don't know. I feel like that they're going to get captured and that the governor's going to keep it from everybody.
No.
And do horrible things to them.
I think they're gonna get captured. I agree with you on that. I think there was one scene that looked like that might be from that, and I think that Rick might get thrown in the pit, and I think that Michonne is gonna get payback, or like the governor's gonna get payback on Michonne for doing what he did. So big revenge.
And I think beyond that, I think Tyreese and Milton will end up somehow discovering that stuff and end up going back to the prison with them.
I agree with Tyreese. I'm not sure about Milton yet. I still feel like he's got a little ways to go before he does that.
Well, I think this will be like end of a arc of a couple episodes.
Yeah, that's true.
Steven's not agreeing at all with this.
I don't. Well, no. What I don't agree with is I don't see them going back to the prison with that. I don't see them breaking Rick and Carl out and going back to the prison. It just doesn't make sense because they've already had that happen. They already had the break in to get people, break them out, and get out and retreat back to the prison. I feel if Rick and Carl get captured and Tyreese probably maybe sends somebody to go to the prison to tell them, that's going to be the war. That's what's going to trigger it, and the war is going to be at Woodbury.
All right.
Okay.
Well, that does it for predictions, guys. Thank you so much for joining us this week. And you can find me on Twitter at the Dave Klein, that's Klein, or go to my website, djk-online.com.
You could find me at Nandovel on Twitter. That's Nandovel.
And you can find me at Stephen Lemieux, that is at StephenLemieux, or at Facebook at www.facebook.com/SRLemieuxPhoto. And we have Martin in the booth.
And guys,
oh, his camera's not on. Don't worry about it.
It is on, but you can't find me anywhere because I'm not on Twitter. So.
All right, Martin not on Twitter, but guys, definitely make sure to say hi to Kristen and Daryl and wish them well for the Oscars this week. We'll see you guys next week.
Thank you.
From Bing.com, executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.